If you think conquering the world is impossible, well, maybe you've never heard of him. A young man who, at 20 years old, was leading armies, challenging emperors, and founding cities destined to last for millennia. Today we bring you the incredible life story of Alexander the Great, the king who changed history forever. Get comfortable because this is a story packed with everything: epic battles, extreme journeys, and impossible dreams. Imagine being 20 years old and having to lead a kingdom surrounded by enemies. Now imagine not only defending it but building the greatest empire the world had ever seen. This is the story of Alexander the Great, the king who challenged the impossible. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedonia. His father, Philip II, was an extraordinary man, a political and military genius capable of transforming a small mountain kingdom into a dominant power. Philip was strict, demanding, but incredibly visionary. He knew the future of his kingdom depended on his son, so he paid great attention to Alexander's education. At court, Alexander breathed politics and strategy from an early age. His relationship with his father was intense but also complex. Alexander deeply admired Philip, seeing him as the greatest general of his era. Yet he also felt the pressure to prove himself, to not live in his father's shadow. Some say that Alexander once lamented, "My father will conquer everything before I have the chance to achieve glory." It was this blend of admiration, ambition, and rivalry that forged him. Philip tested Alexander from a young age. At just 12 years old, Alexander tamed Bucephalus, a wild horse no one could ride. Moved, Philip exclaimed, "My son, seek a kingdom worthy of you, for Macedonia is too small." It wasn't just a compliment, it was a prophecy. At 16, Philip entrusted Alexander with ruling Macedonia while he was at war. Alexander did not disappoint. He crushed a rebellion and founded a city, Alexandropolis. At 18, during the Battle of Chaeronea, Alexander led the Macedonian cavalry in a decisive charge against the Thebans, showing early military brilliance. However, father and son's relationship deteriorated in later years. Philip remarried a Macedonian noblewoman, Cleopatra Eurydice, and had a son with her, threatening Alexander's position as heir. During a banquet, a violent argument erupted. Alexander insulted Philip, who, drunk, tried to attack him but stumbled and fell. Alexander left court for a time, accompanied by his mother Olympias, who despised Philip and conspired against him. Despite a formal reconciliation, tensions remained high. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BC during his daughter's wedding, rumors swirled. Some even suspected Olympias or Alexander's involvement. We'll never know the truth. What is certain is that Alexander reacted swiftly. He eliminated potential rivals, was acclaimed king, and prepared to take his father's dream even further. Consolidating his power, Alexander pursued Philip's unfinished project, the conquest of the Persian Empire. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont with around 40,000 soldiers. The first major test came at the river Granicus. Alexander personally led the cavalry charge against the Persian army, risking his life. His helmet was shattered, but his boldness crushed the Persians. The Greek cities of Asia Minor, liberated, surrendered willingly. In 333 BC, Alexander faced Persian Emperor Darius III at Issus. Despite Darius's massive army, Alexander launched a direct attack at the center, forcing Darius to flee and abandon his family. Alexander treated them with respect, enhancing his image as a magnanimous ruler. He then pushed southward. Tyre, a powerful Phoenician city, resisted. Alexander built a colossal causeway over the sea to besiege it. After 7 months, the city fell. In Gaza, another siege. Alexander was severely wounded in the shoulder but still emerged victorious. In 332 BC, Alexander arrived in Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. There, he founded Alexandria, destined to become a cultural beacon of the ancient world. He visited the Oracle of Ammon in the desert and, according to legend, was recognized as the son of Zeus. Alexander now saw himself as more than a king. He felt destined by the gods. In 331 BC, he again confronted Darius at Gaugamela, a colossal battle. The Persians had scythe chariots, elephants, and overwhelming numbers. Alexander carefully studied the terrain, deceived Darius with a feint to the flank, and then launched a decisive cavalry attack at the center. Darius fled once more. This time, Alexander triumphantly entered Babylon, and soon after captured Susa and Persepolis, the splendid Persian capitals. At Persepolis, in an act of symbolic vengeance, he set fire to Xerxes' palace, avenging the ancient wrongs suffered by the Greeks. But his thirst for conquest was not quenched. Alexander pursued Darius into the remote provinces of Central Asia. Darius was eventually killed by his own satraps. Rather than celebrate, Alexander honored Darius's body and punished the assassins, showing a deep sense of justice that impressed even his own men. At this point, rather than stopping, Alexander pushed even further. He conquered Bactria, modern-day Afghanistan, where he married Roxana, a local noble's daughter, to forge alliances. Facing endless revolts and guerrilla warfare, Alexander changed tactics. He sought to integrate rather than destroy. He recruited Persian soldiers, adopted Persian dress, and ordered mass marriages between his officers and local women. In 327 BC, Alexander crossed the Hindu Kush and invaded India. After grueling battles, he faced King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes. Porus deployed war elephants, a formidable challenge. Alexander triumphed but admired Porus's courage and allowed him to rule as a vassal. At that point, Alexander wished to march further east, but his troops refused. Exhausted after nearly a decade of campaigning, they demanded to return home. After days of silence and reflection, Alexander agreed. The return journey was tragic. Crossing the Gedrosian desert, thousands of his men perished from hunger and thirst. Yet Alexander maintained discipline and salvaged what remained of his army. Upon returning to Babylon, he began planning new campaigns, reorganizing the empire, and trying to unify his diverse subjects into a new culture blending Greek and Eastern elements. But in 323 BC, at just 32 years old, he fell gravely ill. After 12 days of fever and pain, he died without clearly naming a successor. According to legend, his last words were, "Leave my empire to the strongest." After his death, his generals divided his empire, founding the Hellenistic kingdoms. But Alexander's legend endured. Wherever he went, he left traces, cities, ideas, cultural bridges. He forever changed the face of the ancient world, uniting East and West in a vision no one else had dared to dream. Alexander the Great was much more than a conqueror. He was a visionary who turned wars into encounters of civilizations, who saw a broader humanity where others saw only borders. Even today, his dream of a world without barriers continues to inspire us across the centuries. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss more extraordinary tales from ancient history. Tell us in the comments which historical figure you'd like to learn more about. See you on the next adventure.